hitting is a good thing? What a bold statement. That is crazy. But hear me out. You're gonna like this. You're gonna like this a lot. Now, I want you to imagine this scenario that I'm sure you can relate to, especially if you have more than one child. I know that if you're watching this video right now, there's quarantine time, so it's likely not going to be like hitting with other children as such, unless you are seeing, having play dates now. But let's look into the future and imagine that it's no longer lockdown and quarantine and there's no coronavirus. Anyways, imagine this scenario. Your children are finally playing together quietly, and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is finally your time to make your brew or your cup of tea, call your bestie and have that overdue catch up. So you're just about to sit down on your sofa with your cup of tea, dial your friend's number and have that chat. But then, in the corner of your eye, you spot something. You look towards that direction, you look towards your children and poof, you see the hit. And instantly you get fired up, right? Now let's pause for a second, because two things can happen here when it comes to our reaction. Now before I go into this reaction, I want you to remember that there's no good and bad way to parent. Just especially from my perspective, I don't believe in good and bad parenting. There's just ways of parenting that is either beneficial for us as parents and our children, most importantly, or it's non-beneficial for ourselves and our children. So we just need to kind of distinguish what those benefits or non-benefits are, and then decide what parenting style we want to use. So what happens? What are the two reactions that could happen? The first reaction is that we could go to our child, go to the hitting child, the one who caused the hit, did the hitting, and say, look, you shouldn't be hitting, and tell them what they shouldn't be doing, that they shouldn't hit. And then we may put them in a naughty step or tell them off or discipline them in some way. Now the first scenario, take note that we're not actually helping them to learn anything from that situation. We're not helping them to learn what they can do instead of hitting. So we discipline them, but we're not actually then telling them what they should be doing instead. And even if we are, we're not doing it in a way where they're learning specific superpowers. And I'm going to explain these superpowers, aka life skills that they can take on for the rest of their lives, in just a second. Now the second reaction could be, or response, I'll call it a response, because we're now intentionally using our parenting style that benefits both our children and ourselves to teach them this particular superpower, which I'm going to tell you, I'm going to drum into you right now and share with you because it's so amazing. So we go to our child who caused the hitting. I would say, oh, I can see you're upset, because obviously they're upset and they're upset by their sibling or their friend. Something's happened, there's been a dispute, and they thought they would vent out their anger because it's the only way they know how, by hitting. So you acknowledge how they're feeling. The first thing you want to do is acknowledge how they're feeling. So you would say, I can see you're upset. And the upset, because you acknowledge how they're feeling and you label the emotion, it helps them to realize that the upset or the anger is what caused the hitting. And then you would say to them, and help them learn what they could do instead. So you'll have a can-do approach rather than they shouldn't do approach. Rather than saying you shouldn't be hitting your child, but then not giving them an alternative way of responding to that situation, that dispute, you could say to them, instead of hitting, so you're telling them that hitting is not going to fly, hitting is not going to happen in this house, but this is what you could do instead if your sibling or your friend upsets you next time. So you say, what you could, instead of hitting, tell them that you don't like such and such, and let's just check in that they're okay. Let's go in. So you would go and do it together. So you would say for example, your child's name is Susan. You say, Susan, I can see you're upset, but instead of hitting, let's go and tell them why you're upset. Tell your sister why you're upset, and then check that she's okay. Now here you're teaching them two things, two superpowers. It's amazing. Here you're teaching them to get in touch with their feelings and to be aware of what caused the hitting. But also you're teaching them emotional intelligence and internal motivation as well. So with the internal motivation, you're going to be teaching them to literally find a way to problem solve the situation in a way that benefits and protects them and protects the other person, to make sure that they're okay. It really brings on that superpower of empathy, When you're asking your child to check that their sibling or their friend is okay, then that is really helping them to learn empathy. And also, when you're asking them to say, instead of hitting, let's go and tell your sister what you're not happy with, you're helping them to learn how to set boundaries with other people. So it's brilliant. It's an amazing superpower, and you're teaching them that internal motivation that they're going to take on for the rest of their lives, and most importantly, within those situations if they were to arise again. So this is why actually hitting is a good thing, because it gives us an opportunity to teach them these superpowers. They can problem solve a lot easier, and they can enhance their ability to have empathy for others while setting boundaries for themselves when people are playing and interacting with them. So yes, we can go and put them in the naughty step and discipline them, but what are they really learning? We need to question that. Are they learning how else they can behave? Because what will happen there is that yes, they won't hit again in that moment, but they will repeat it over and over and over again because they don't know how else to respond or to react when they feel upset by someone else. However, if we can keep telling them over and over, look, instead of hitting, you can let them know and communicate why you're upset and check that they're okay, then that gives them a can-do approach, and they know what they can do, and they don't feel bad. We're not making them feel bad for hitting, because that's the only way they can express themselves in that moment. You know, I'm sure we've all done it. I used to hit my sister left, right and centre. She used to hit me. We used to have fights, but I never knew any other way to really just solve these issues. But imagine what we're doing for them, creating these superpowers, because when they get older, they'll be able to manage relationships a lot more with emotional intelligence and empathy. Say, for example, your child is now older, they're a young teenager or they're a young adult, they're now living with roommates, and they so happen to have a roommate who's not very tidy. They go and approach this roommate and say, look, I would love for us to find a way to have a routine where we could just clean the house and work together with this. I don't want you to feel like I'm like singling you out or making you feel uncomfortable. I just want to check that you're okay. Can we come to a compromise? How much more amazing is that compared to you need to clean and being argumentative and having this awkward kind of relationship with people because they don't know how to communicate properly? They will be able to have the confidence to set boundaries and to communicate with people a lot more effectively and have better results with people. So those are the superpowers we can actually enrich our children with. And again, we can either choose to discipline them, or we can choose to help them find alternative ways of behaving. Now, don't get me wrong. Our children, especially obviously toddlers, they'll forget what we've just taught them of what they can do instead of hitting. But so it's up to us to be persistent and be consistent and be patient with them and repeat those instructions over and over again. And honestly, before you know it, they will be doing it themselves. They'll be problem solving, they'll be communicating and solving sibling disputes by themselves together, and you'll look at and witness it, and it's just gonna like awe you, and you're gonna be like so amazed, because they're gonna be able to solve their disputes with respect for each other, with compassion, with more empathy. They're still gonna have their arguments, but there'll be no more hitting. Like it'll get to that point. So we do have to be obviously mindful and be persistent and keep, they're gonna forget over and over again, but it's up to us to just kind of be that space to remind them this is what you can do rather than the hitting. But disciplining them is not gonna be enough if they don't know any other way of being with their sibling or their friend. So this is what I wanted to share with you. Leave a comment below if you're gonna use this method of dealing with hitting, because it happens for all of us, it's in part of the human nature. Unfortunately, when we go through childhood, we hit at some point. So let me know if you're going to use it, or if you've been using something very similar. Let me know what you think of the superpowers that they're going to get to gain because of this. There's going to be more videos like this coming up where I'm going to share more superpowers that we can enrich our children with to make our parenting easier and more enjoyable, but also for our children to grow up into confident and happy individuals. And who doesn't want that for their parents, right? For their parents, for their children. So thank you so much for tuning in. Leave a thumbs up if you can. And if you are only just joining me now, I would love for you to consider subscribing. I post on a regular basis. I've been a bit late recently because I've been very unwell. Not coronavirus, but just had a bit of a stomach bug. But I'm starting to slowly get back into it. But I do post every week, every Sunday. I would love to have you as a viewer. Do share with any friends, parent friends who would love to have this kind of support. And you know what? I want you to remember this. It takes a village to raise a baby. And so we're in this together. Let's put in all our resources, all our knowledge, all our specialisms to be able to grow our children together, because at the end of the day, they become part of society, they build communities, and if we want a better world, then it's all about raising our children in the best way that we can. Right, I wish you an amazing day, and I will see you next week. Mwah.